Welcome back, guys. In this video we learn how to sew this flare shirt top, right? So let's get into the video. Now I'm going to fold my fabric. I used 3 yards of fabric for this. You can use 2.5 for a small size. So this is the folded part, right? This is the open part. So I folded my fabric into two first. Then I'm going to fold again in a bias form. Normally I would hold that press there and fold it all the way, but because it is not really full, I'm just going to fold it slightly in a bias form like this. If you notice the top part, that the peak is not pointy, so watch how I am folding it, just like this. So you fold it like this because you don't want it to be really flared, right? So here I'm trying to get my length and just to make sure that everything is well put together, so that I'll start taking my measurements. Now I'm making use of a shoulder measurement of 10 inches. This is because I added 2 inches to it. Normally the shoulder is 8 inches. I added 2 inches to it because it is like a free dress with dropped shoulder kind of. So here I'm making sure that the 10 inches of my shoulder, just trying to make sure that 10 inches falls in somewhere there. You can see it's 10 inches there. I'm just going to rule a straight line there. That's my shoulder line. So I'll just mark 10 inches there, rule a straight line. So make sure that where you're placing your tape is exactly what you have for your shoulder measurement. Just I've ruled a straight line, I will go ahead and mark out the button allowance. So this is the button allowance. I'm marking out 3 inches for the button allowance. This is for the front. We were folded for both the front and the back. So I'm marking out 3 inches for the button allowance all the way down, which I will eventually fold to create my buttons, right? So 3 inches for your button allowance all the way down for your front piece. Just connect the lines. Okay, now it will serve as my front, then the one on top that is on fold on this side is going to be my back. So because this area is for the front where the button would be, I'm now going to come on this side and mark out my armhole depth, or will I say my chest line. Okay, so I'm marking 9 inches for my chest line, just to create my armhole curve. So I'll place my tape in a straight way and mark out a straight line, and just this is by 9 inches. I'm just going to use a brighter chalk so that it shows well. So I've marked it out. This is what I have for my chest line. So now on my chest line, I would take my bust circumference and mark it there. So my bust circumference divided by 4 plus 1.5 inch ease allowance, and then 1.5 inch seam allowance. That is exactly what I marked. Okay, so 3 inches allowance altogether, and I'll mark my armhole curve, and this is what I have right now. Right, it's a loosely fitted dress, so you add ease allowance so that it's going to be free. So I'll come on this part now and I'll mark my neck width. I'm making use of a neck width of 3 inches, right? And then the depth for the back is going to be 1 inch. So we'll be marking out the back first. Then the front, I'll mark a neck depth of 2.5 for the front. So first I'm going to mark out for the back, connect it like this. Then here is the front. When I'm cutting, I'll cut the back first, then I'll separate and cut the front. Now I'll mark my shoulder slope on this side, shoulder slope of 1 inch, connect it there. And that is basically all for the drafting. So I'll go ahead and cut this out. So watch what I'm cutting. Okay, so then I'll do my full length. That's the full length of the dress. So if you're marking out your full length, you're going to place your tape on the shoulder line. Okay, so I'm marking out my full length, including all the seam allowance. So in total, I'm marking 31. So place your tape on the shoulder line and then you rotate. Because it's on bias, it's folded on bias, you have to place your tape on the full length, on the shoulder, right, like this, and just keep marking it out. Okay. It's going to be a little curve because it's folded on a bias way, right? So you just connect it together like this. So connect it to the front, mark out on the button allowance area and just connect it. I'll go ahead and cut this out. So guys, if you're watching up to this point, please hit on the like button. It is very free. Subscribe to the channel so more people can see this video. All right, thank you. So I'm cutting this out. I'll slash the side open, cut out my armhole. Then on my shoulder, I added ½ inch. I didn't cut exactly on that line. Cut out the back neck. Okay, and here is what I have. And I'll go ahead and mark out the, complete neck depth of the front. And then I'll cut it out. So here is what I have. We have two pieces, the back and the front piece. So I'll just notch the button allowance there, notch the top part, notch the bottom part to enable me know where I am folding for my button allowance for the front, right? Now I have the back, which is one piece like this, right? And I have the front, which is two piece because of the opening in front for the button. Okay, so I'll go ahead and attach an interface on the button area so that I would fold it and sew it. So just attach your interface, which I've already done, and now go ahead and fold it, okay, up to the place that I notched for it, right? Fold it and sew. I'll do the same thing for the other piece, and then that will be it. Then I'll also go ahead and join the shoulders, right? And then join the sides by whatever allowance you added for joining. I added 1.5, so I'll join the side by 1.5. Then I'll go ahead and cut the sleeve. So the sleeve is also a flare sleeve, and you also cut it the same way that we cut the bodice. So this is how I'm going to fold it slightly in a bias shape like this, so that it will give that flare effect. So I'm just marking out to be sure that my fold is okay, including the length. Now I'll place my tape and mark out my armhole circumference. Once I'm done, when I get the desired width that I want and the length. So I'll mark out my armhole circumference. I'm marking out 11 inches there, freehand method. Mark out 11 inches including seam allowance. Just mark out a straight line there. It's my starting point. I'm going to make my armhole curve like this. Just bring this down. Then I'll mark out the full length. So I'll place my tape on the starting point there and just mark out the full length. Once I'm done marking out the full length, I'm just going to connect the lines like this, and then I'll cut it out. So I'm going to use this piece and cut another sleeve because it's supposed to be two sleeves. I use this and cut another one to make sure I'm folding the same way I folded the first one on a bias, shape. And then I'll cut a second piece of my sleeve. Go ahead and do all the join the sleeves, which I've already done. Here is the sleeve. I've joined the shoulders, the button and everything. So like the button allowance, I sewed it down. The next thing is to measure the round neckline. So I'm measuring my neckline like this, and after measuring I will now cut the collar. So I have exactly, after measuring, I'm going to have exactly 19.5 inches for my neckline, round neckline. Now I'll cut the collar. It's a two-piece collar, the collar stand and then the collar itself. So I folded my fabric into two like this, and I'll be cutting the collar stand first. Let's draft the collar stand first. So 19.5 is what I got for my collar, right? So divided by 2, right, I'll have about 9.75, I guess. Yeah, so I'm just going to mark out 9.75. But first I'll mark out my starting point. Let me eliminate that border or the selvage. This is my starting point. So I'll mark out the half of my neck, round neck is 9.75. Okay, so I've marked it. Then what I will do is just increase the length there. So I'll now get the midpoint of 9.75. So this thing I marked here, I'll get the midpoint of 9.75. Okay, and it should be about 4.75. Then I'll just mark it there. Just get the midpoint and mark it. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is get the height of this collar. So I'm doing 2 inches. Ordinarily it's supposed to be 1 inch, but the extra 1 inch is for joining for both the upper part and the down part. Okay, so I'll come on this part and increase this by, come up by half of an inch. Okay, and then I'll connect it to that midpoint there with a little slant like this. So I'll go ahead and take my collar height of 2 inches. As I am coming over to this part that is slanty, I'll follow that slanty line. So this is a new line. We no longer need the straight line. So I'll follow the slanty line and mark my 2 inches neck height. Okay, and then I'll connect all of this together. So guys, if this is a little bit confusing because it's kind of fast, I have a detailed tutorial on how to cut this exact two-piece collar. I'll put the link on the description box below so that you guys check it out. It is kind of slower and more detailed. Okay, so I have this now, and that is all for the collar stand. I'll now go ahead and make that curve that we usually have on our collar stand on this area. Just freehand it, eyeball it, and just curve it like this. Okay, so this is all we have here. So when I'm cutting, I'll add ½ inch allowance on this side because I didn't. That is the only place I'll add ½ inch allowance because I've already added at the top part, at the bottom part. Now let's create the collar itself. So I'll mark my straight line, my starting point line here. Okay, I also mark the same line here, the same length that I marked there. That is the 9.75. Just increase the line there. Then the collar height is 3 inches, right? This is including seam allowance. Okay, connect it with a straight line. Then I'll come on this part and I'll mark 1 inch in, and then I'll connect it like this with a slant. Also come on this part of the collar and go up by ½ inch. Then I'll get the midpoint of what I have left here. Get the midpoint. Okay, so I get the midpoint. I'll just mark it out. mark it out. Then I'll connect that part that I came up by, that 1/2 inch, connect it to that midpoint with a slant like this, right? So this is what we have for the collar and the collar stand. I'll go ahead and cut this out, and I'll make sure that while I'm cutting, I'm adding 1/2 inch allowance on the outer parts for joining. So watch how I'm cutting this. I'm adding 1/2 inch allowance on this side, okay, and on this side. That is the only place I'm adding allowance, because I didn't add it while I was, drafting. So I'll cut this out like this. See how I'm adding my 1/2 inch allowance, okay? I didn't cut exactly on the line, I added 1/2 inch allowance. I do the same thing for this part. Also add my 1/2 inch. Now I have this, so I'll go ahead and cut out one more piece each of these, because they're supposed to be 2 pieces each. Okay, so I'll fold my fabric again and cut out 1 piece each of these, right? So you use one to turn the other one. So I'm cutting another piece each of these collar. Once I'm done, this is what I have. I have 2 pieces for each of them. I'll go ahead and attach an interface, that is your collar stay or the half stay, on them, each of them. Here's what I have. I'll go ahead and sew the sides by 1/2 inch. I'm only leaving this, down part open. I'll just sew the sides, and then I would fold this one into two. I want to get the midpoint for both the top part and the bottom part, and then I will notch it. Also get the midpoint of this one, and then I will notch it. And then after doing that, I'll take to my machine and sew, the part that I indicated with 1/2 inch, which I've already done. I'm cutting out the pointy parts now, and then I'll flip it to the right side. Make sure I poke out the pointy edges, and then I'm going to iron this out. I've done the ironing. I've ironed it flat. Then I'm going to place this one on it. Make sure I match the notches, place them like this, right? So this is what we are trying to achieve. So I'll place them. I'll use my pins and hold them down. Align them. Make sure the notches match. I'll align them very well and just pin everything properly. As I align, I pin down. It's going to be easier for me to sew. Okay. Please guys, click on the like button if you're still watching up to this point. Click on the like button and subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. Thank you so much for your support. So after that, I'm going to now take to my sewing machine and sew by 1/2 inch like I am indicating. I've done that, and I'll trim off all the excesses so that it lays flat. Once I flip it, I'll flip it over, and I'll go ahead and iron it flat, right? So now after ironing, it's time to sew it to our shirt. I'm going to bring my shirt. I'll get the midpoint of my round neck. So just match the shoulders and get the midpoint, and I'll notch it. Then I'll open it like this. Now this is the wrong side of my shirt facing me. I'll match my collar, that is the notch, on the notch that I have on my neckline. So one piece of the collar, open it up, and I'll match this other side, right? And I'll sew by 1/2 inch until I get to the other side. So I have done that. Can you see? And once I'm done with that, if you measured your neckline correctly, everything is going to match up. No excesses, okay? So after I've done that, I'm just going to, probably use my iron and just push this seam in, right? And then I'm going to fold over, you know, fold over like this, half of an inch, okay, and sew on the front area like this. Just sew it as you're folding over half of an inch, you're sewing on top of the seam. And I am done with that, and here's what it looks like. I'll go ahead and iron everything nicely, the collar and just the shirts, just iron everything, and that will be the end of the tutorial. I'll go ahead and now attach my buttons and my button holes, and the shirt is ready. Guys, this is the end of this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Please, if it was, kindly hit on the like button, subscribe to my channel if you're not yet subscribed. Thank you so much for the support and watching to the end. I'll see you in my next one.